Hello and welcome to my annotated resource portfolio for the Year 9 Economics and Business curriculum. This presentation provides an analysis and evaluation of the literacy demands and challenges of 4 resources that support literacy learning in Year 9 Economics and Business. For each resource, we will also explore 2 activities that address these literacy demands and identify 2 teaching strategies that meet the needs of a diverse range of students. Literacy learning is an essential component of economics and business, as students will learn to examine and interpret a variety of business data and information by using different language features and text structures to comprehend and compose a range of cohesive texts. Students must learn to use the specialized language and terminology of economics and business in order to describe and explain processes and sequential cause and effect relationships when communicating to a range of audiences. Development of this literacy knowledge is fundamental for students to demonstrate the habits of thinking and reasoning that align with the discipline of business. The first resource is an informational YouTube video about debt created by Money Smart as part of an Australian government-supported initiative to promote financial responsibility and empowerment. It is appropriate for Year 9 Economics and Business because it aligns with the knowledge and understanding strand and discusses how people manage financial risks and debt. This resource is relevant to Year 9 Economics and Business as it correlates to a number of content descriptors. In particular, it positions students to explore the ways in which people manage financial risks in the current Australian financial landscape and requires students to gather and analyse relevant data and information in order to apply economics and business knowledge and present reasoned arguments. The resource supports literacy learning by drawing on students' receptive listening and viewing skills and processes to access and understand the sophisticated language structures of business texts. Students need to identify key points in the speaker's arguments, derive generalized meaning from abstract ideas, and adjust the processes of listening and viewing to make meaning according to context. This resource presents a number of literacy demands and challenges, as students must comprehend and derive meaning from a multimodal text. This will be a particular challenge for ESL students or those from non-Western backgrounds, as they may require specific support to build English language skills and distinguish between spoken and written text. An activity that would address key literacy demands in this resource is a modified close activity, where students work independently to fill in gaps on a worksheet. Students must here draw on their receptive listening skills in order to identify the key language and terminology that is necessary to fill in gaps, and connect the meaning of discipline-specific language to context. This activity is an example of a top-down approach to literacy task design, as the focus is on listening to the whole of the text to derive meaning. This means being able to recognize the type of text, its purpose, and position students to predict meaning on the basis of the language itself and students' prior knowledge. An effective and complementary teaching strategy that would support the implementation and delivery of this activity is scaffolding. This strategy involves temporary assistance from the teacher, which helps students know how to do something so that the learner will later be able to complete the task alone. Scaffolded instruction caters to a diverse range of students, including ESL students, as it provides support and constructs these students as capable and intelligent learners. It also enables students to operate within their zone of proximal development, engaging them in challenging tasks that they would not otherwise be able to complete alone through teacher support. A second activity that would address the literacy demands of this resource is small group discussions based on 2 contrasting vignettes that highlight good versus bad spending habits. Discussions are good because they generally do not have a right answer and provide students with opportunities to speak and write using the language of the discipline. This activity embeds literacy learning in the classroom, as it requires students to first utilize receptive skills and strategies to access and interpret spoken text, so that they can then use expressive language to compose their own spoken text and participate in discussion and share their opinions in small groups. Implicit in small group activities are teaching strategies that afford opportunities for students to engage in collaborative or cooperative learning experiences. This teaching strategy gives students the opportunity to share their views and opinions and helps to promote a wide range of social and communication skills that align with the economics and business curriculum. This teaching strategy supports a diverse range of learners, including ESL students, by providing them with the opportunity to engage in constructive classroom talk, which assists cognitive development and language learning. This strategy also has advantageous implications for students' capacity to self-regulate and build competence, which in turn has positive influences on student emotions. The second resource within this portfolio is an informative newspaper article published by The Conversation. The article is a useful resource in Year 9 Economics and Business because it highlights a range of key ideas and concepts relating to innovation and competitive advantage, which are core elements of the Year 9 curriculum. This resource is both appropriate and relevant for Year 9 business as it exposes students to the knowledge and understanding that underpins the nature of innovation and how businesses seek to create and maintain a competitive advantage. Students convey their knowledge and understanding by developing questions about business issues, analysing information in different formats, and reflecting on the consequences of business decisions. This resource supports literacy learning by positioning students to access and interpret written text in a digital format. Here, students must navigate, read, and view learning area texts using applied topic knowledge, vocabulary, and word knowledge in order to comprehend, interpret, analyse, and evaluate texts for shades of meaning and information. Students in business explain and analyse a wide variety of texts and use knowledge of economic processes and events to compose effective evidence-informed responses. The literacy demands of this resource are therefore assessed according to its field, tenor, and mode, which broadly relates to what the text is about, the relationships, and the type and purpose of the text, respectively. The field is established through process-oriented and cause-and-effect language, which explains that organisations who successfully innovate generate business value. Students must become familiar with the way in which word groups link processes in order to explain the relationship between cause and effect and understand the interdependence of business participants, namely organisations, managers, and employees. The text poses only 2 questions and headings and does not draw on personal or emotional language to establish a relationship with the reader, making it an informative rather than persuasive text. It is conveyed in written form and contains no sound and minimal visual elements. However, it uses relatively complex terminology which may pose a challenge for ESL students. An activity which would address the literacy demands of this resource is a before reading activity in which the reader poses questions about the text which they think it might answer. Activities of this nature facilitate the development of a holistic understanding of the text and its meaning by building up relevant topic knowledge prior to engaging in comprehension. As part of the activity, students write down 3 or 4 questions which can be displayed around the room or on the board. Writing their own questions encourages students to interact with the text before reading it and assists in developing reading and scanning skills. Another activity which may address the literacy demands of this resource is an after-reading activity involving true or false statements. Here, students receive a number of statements related to the text and must determine whether they are true or false and underline evidence in the text supporting their decision. After-reading activities of this nature utilise the now familiar text as a basis for extended language development. Students may be required to make inferences from the text to determine their choices, and in this way, develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills. These activities could be successfully implemented alongside the class discussion approach to teaching. Class discussions are an effective means of promoting learning practices that build on shared knowledge and understandings. In this way, ESL students and learners across a range of abilities are actively involved in the learning process and have opportunities to share prior knowledge and experiences. Scaffolding would also be an effective teaching strategy here to help facilitate ESL student learning since the text introduces complex and unfamiliar terminology. Scaffolding involves assistance from the teacher whereby the core message of the text or particular words are amplified rather than simplified. This enables students to perform at an advanced level and feel more competent with their abilities. The third resource is an interactive multimodal text available online through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade's website. The Trade Through Time website documents milestones in Australia's trading history and allows students to access tailored information about Australia's trading history in an interactive, engaging and dynamic way. This resource is relevant to Year 9 business students as it builds their knowledge and understanding of Australia as a trading nation and its place within the global economy. This resource is also valuable for economics and business content descriptions about developing questions, generating viable options, gathering and interpreting data, and presenting reasoned arguments and evidence-based conclusions. This resource is ideal for supporting literacy learning in business as it exposes students to the knowledge of the discipline in a visual format and requires them to analyse and explain text structures and language features, use comprehension, and create informative texts. Students must also navigate digital text to efficiently locate accurate and relevant information that supports new knowledge development. The literacy demands of this resource relate to students accessing, reading, and viewing sophisticated texts that use complex language and multimodal and visual elements, including tables, charts, graphs, and diagrams. Students will need to draw on their grammar of visual design in order to understand how various visual and other elements of the multimodal resource express different meanings. This may pose a challenge for some students, as the numerous elements of visual composition can have a cultural bias and produce varying meaning in different sociocultural contexts. Students will be confronted with basic elements of visual communication such as line, shape, direction, tone, colour, size, and scale, as well as other more complex visual elements like symbols and motifs. An activity that students could undertake, which relates directly to the resource, is to read the post-Federation article, Australia's Trade Since Federation, in pairs and identify a topic of interest they can research further. Students would hear drawn reading, listening, and viewing skills to highlight sections of text that relate to their topic. This activity requires students to understand how visual elements set context and convey meaning. They must also navigate the digital obstacles and interpret visual elements in order to gather relevant and reliable data and information from a range of sources. A follow-up and complementary activity could be for students to prepare presentations on their chosen topics. Students could here choose to express their findings using different combinations of text, images, videos, animations, audio, or visual features. Students may choose to present their topics in the form of a report, video, digital slideshow, or whatever they think may be most effective. Students will here need to analyse data and information in different formats to explain relationships and illustrate alternative perspectives. They will need to use structural features effectively to convey ideas and business knowledge, as well as deliver spoken text fluently in an engaging way. A teaching strategy implicit of these activities is small group work or cooperative learning in which students solve tasks and have opportunities to speak and write the content knowledge of business. This strategy enables students to take control of their learning and assume responsibility for reviewing, organising, and consolidating their prior knowledge and material. The effective delivery of the two activities would also be supported by teacher scaffolding, which provides students with structure and support so that they can perform at a higher level. This strategy would be valuable for supporting ESL learners, as the business knowledge conveyed in the multimodal text may be unfamiliar and confusing to students from diverse cultural backgrounds and with varying levels of ability. The fourth and final resource in this portfolio is an informative online text that may be used as an exemplar of good writing in economics and business. The resource is an educational text available from the Reserve Bank of Australia's website, which explains how Australia is situated within the global economy in the context of the terms of trade boom. This resource is relevant to Unite Business as it aligns with the economics and business knowledge and understanding strands related to Australia as a trading nation and the interdependence of economic participants. Students will need to gather relevant and reliable data and information from a digital source and analyse this information to explain relationships and present evidence-based conclusions. The resource supports literacy learning by familiarising students with the language features and text structures used to comprehend and compose cohesive texts. It also develops students' ability to read and write sustained informative texts that precisely explain, analyse, and evaluate concepts, and use a variety of features and language conventions to describe economic processes and communicate ideas. This text presents a number of demands and challenges related to literacy learning, as students will need to comprehend and interpret complex texts using language features and text structures, including discipline-specific vocabulary, appropriate verbs and adjectives for describing processes, and complex sentences to explain cause and effect relationships. The resource also relies on a number of visual design elements to convey data and information, and students will therefore need to understand how different design elements communicate and express meaning. This resource may pose a particular challenge to ESL and culturally diverse students who may need additional support to learn the discipline-specific language structures and vocabulary of the text. An activity that would embed literacy learning opportunities in the classroom is a scaffolded detailed reading in which students are provided explicit support on how to read a complex text. Under this approach, students read and have access to models of written academic language which draw their attention to the language patterns in the text and meanings they express. A subsequent and supplementary writing activity that would further support literacy is a guided retelling. This activity provides students a platform with which they can interact with and respond to texts in a way that enables access to the linguistic and stylistic features of the discipline. Prior to the retelling, the text is read and discussed between teacher and class so students can familiarise themselves with the text and its language. During the guided retelling, the academic language, visual cues, and ways of thinking are presented to the students so that they can use those features to retell the text and practice their disciplinary thinking. An effective teaching strategy that would support literacy learning in the first activity is close reading. This refers to approaching complex text through a methodical examination in order to expose different levels of meaning and reach a deeper understanding. This strategy helps to focus students' attention on how the text makes meaning through imagery, word choices, and sentence structure. Another teaching strategy through which these activities could be implemented is targeted feedback. Given the complexity of economics and business language and vocabulary, the provision of feedback is important for providing students with support that reinforces and recognises their efforts, while also building feelings of competence and intrinsic motivation. that concludes the presentation component of this resource portfolio. I hope that it's been interesting, and thank you for listening.